Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Data Privacy Day event. My name is David Hoffman from Duke University Sanford School of Public Policy. I'm really excited to be here and for us to have this special event. This is a joint event with us here at Duke University and with the Carolina Privacy Officials Network, CPON. And to kick us off with Data Privacy Day, I want to introduce Judy Beach, who is the founder of CPON and is going to give a couple opening welcoming remarks. Judy?
Welcome everybody. I'm so glad that you could join. I don't know if everybody knows about Carolina Privacy Officials Network, but some of you are members from several years. Our first meeting was the 7th of October, 2005. So we've been in existence for quite a while. And the reason we formed was because we wanted to do collaboration and working together across industry, but mainly to do some lobbying and to help work on regulations and laws and privacy. And IAPP, which most of you know about, doesn't do that. So we formed it. So every 2 or 3 months, we would all go up on the Hill and meet with different congressmen and senators and talk about privacy. And we had several people that were involved, Michael Hubbard and Jolynn Dellinger, Nate Kleinfelter, and several others would join. And but we sort of haven't had a meeting in a couple of years due to COVID, but we've decided to start it up again. I'll be working with David Hoffman on that, and we'll talk some more maybe later about what we're planning, what kind of meetings we're planning. So we're hoping that everybody will start joining again. As soon as we can start meeting in person, we will, or at least have Zoom and in person, but it's just a little crazy right now. So we're still gonna meet remotely. Is anything else you want to say about?
No, that's great. And we'd hoped we would have a room full of people here. Thanks for everybody who was going to be here in person at Duke, who has joined over Zoom. I think now what I'd like to do is introduce our keynote speaker. We're going to, Gal Rangel is going to present for about 30 to 40 minutes, and then we're going to open up for questions. Gal Rangel is the CEO of Mine, and Mine is a privacy technology company, which Gal will describe more of. Mine has provided some research funding for us at Duke University to look into for the cyber policy program, and has also been supplying us with data that they have been getting about the timeliness with which companies respond to data subject access requests and how that breaks out by industry and geography. Just today for Data Privacy Day, we've released the first analysis of that data. I'd like to thank Ty Ewan, who's our lead student on the research team, taking a look at this. And that research blog is posted to the Triangle Privacy Research Hub, and I'll be sending out the URL for that to everyone. So Gal, thank you so much for working with us and supplying the data and providing the contribution to the cyber policy program that allows us to be able to fund to do that work. I do want to call out that Gal, like anyone else who works with us, has provided funding, but Mine does not provide any substantive oversight or control over the results of the research. And so that's also one of the reasons we wanted Gal to be able to come in and to describe what Mine itself is seeing and to provide everybody an opportunity to ask questions. So Gal, with that, why don't I let you take it away?
Perfect. Thank you very much, David and Judith. I'm very excited to be here. By the way, same as you try to, lobby and push privacy regulations, I'm trying to do the same every day. And I'm currently based in Israel, in Tel Aviv. And we are also thriving to update our privacy laws locally. So we have a really old privacy laws from 1983. So we are also doing everything we can here in Israel to also push the industry forward and to align with the GDPR. So this is like in high level. I'm going to share my screen and tell you a little bit what we were doing over the last 3 years in the data privacy space. And feel free to We will have questions at the end, so we will open it up for discussion, and I'd love to answer any questions you might have. So a few words about myself and the team that is working together with me. So personally, I'm the company CEO. Together with me are two co-founders, another gal, which is our CTO, and Kobe, which lead our product. And myself and our CTO, we are coming from an extensive cybersecurity background. We served in the Israeli military, part of the Israeli intelligence, for almost 7 years, both of us ex-officers. Part of the Israeli intelligence, we dealt with cybersecurity, which is, I would say, the equivalent of the NSA in the US. And thanks to that military service, 10 years after, which is 3 years ago, we decided to start Mine and to take a lot of the cybersecurity experience that we learned there and funnel it for consumers, but also to help companies with anything related to the privacy experience. So to take privacy regulations, make it accessible for consumers so they can really activate their rights and use it to be safe online. But on the other end, we learned how challenging it is for companies to handle these privacy requests and essentially to deal with anything related to privacy operations. So data mapping, DSR handling, data access requests, particularly. So I'm going to touch some challenges that we're seeing in the market and show you how we are solving that and how we help companies to use our no-code and automation to really orchestrate the entire privacy operation within the company. As I mentioned earlier, the idea to start Mine was essentially the increasing data breaches and privacy scandals that were skyrocketing worldwide. I don't know if you are watching these news specifically, but ever since COVID-19 started and we were all locked up home, right, for a few times, essentially most of the worldwide population moved their entire offline activity to online. We didn't have any choice. So the entire consumer behavior and digital changed dramatically. And ever since COVID-19 started, that amazing or rapid digitalization created a situation in the market where a lot of new businesses were now working online, and most of them had to adapt to the new reality very fast. So they don't necessarily have the budgets for real privacy and security protection, and therefore the amount of data breaches and privacy scandals were almost doubling themselves ever since COVID-19 started. And the problem is that the history shows that companies are struggling to protect our data. And this is why eventually at the end of the day, we, the individuals worldwide, are paying the price, because every time that the company gets breached, then our data as their customers get stolen, leaked out, and sold in the dark web. And eventually that goes back to hurt us in many forms, like identity theft, reputation damage, financial loss, even manipulation in the case of Cambridge Analytica and Facebook that you all know. So part of the idea to start Mine is, for the first time, understand which companies have collected our data through our day-to-day engagement in the internet. Anytime that we sign up to a new service, we purchase something. So I'm going to touch that in a minute. And another driver to start Mine 3 years ago was the GDPR. And when we started the company, we actually had to deal with the question whether GDPR is here to stay or not. I don't know if most of you remember, but when GDPR got into effect officially almost four years ago, it created a lot of, I would say, mess in the market, because on the one hand, companies had to now adjust to a new reality, right? New privacy laws, and now forcing them to be more accountable, responsible to data, to personal data, and all kind of other areas within the GDPR. So it created some uncertainty in the market. But as we see today, the GDPR pushed the entire market globally to adopt similar privacy regulations. So you have the CCPA in California, and in Canada, and in Brazil, Argentina, South Africa, India, it's growing. And specifically in the US, we hope that 2022 would be the year of new privacy regulations in most states across the US. And hopefully the federal legislation that is going on would also be able to increase as well. So this is very good news for both individuals and companies that these privacy rights are expanding, because it's also protect us, the individual, but it's also push companies to provide a better privacy experience for us as we are using their services. So what is mine? So when we started the company, we developed a smart data assistant, which is essentially an app that you can all use right now that helps you monitor and manage your personal data online. What does it mean? Essentially, in 30 seconds, we can build your own digital footprint, which is a list of all the companies that have collected your data in the past. So we are able to track previous sign-up, purchases, trips that you did abroad, any kind of digital relationship that you had with the company, we are able to track that and then to measure the risk in terms of that specific relationship. So to understand what data they exactly collected, like social security number, credit card, physical address, date of birth. And then we look at the amount of data that each company collected, and we are able to match it to calculate the risk exposure. It's quite similar to Credit Karma, which is quite popular in the US, but for your data privacy. And the nice thing about it, we do that without collecting almost any data. So we committed to collect the bare minimum of personal data. And this is something that I'm very proud of, because we built a really sophisticated technology, which is not privacy invasive. And that product, we launched it into the market two years ago, and that product grew amazingly fast. Today, we have more than 1 million users worldwide that discovered their digital footprint, understood their risk. And I forgot to mention the most interesting part, we made the right to be forgotten within any privacy regulation, and also data access request accessible with the click of a button. And then users can take action by asking companies to reclaim their data and to remove it. And by that, they help themselves to reduce their online exposure and essentially avoid digital risks in the future. So this is how we started. This is what we're still doing. But last year, 2020, companies started to approach us directly saying, hey, Mine, we love your product. We understand the vision. We think it's really groundbreaking, and we need help. And then we started speaking with them and asking, what help do you need? So they started to explain how challenging it is for them to handle privacy requests, whether it's data access request or data erasure at scale. What does it mean? Many companies were compliant to GDPR or CCPA or any other privacy regulation. They had the infrastructure, but when they started to receive privacy requests at scale, that created a really cumbersome and complex process within the company to really handle these requests on time. And essentially, there are three roles within each company that are dealing with incoming privacy requests. It's usually the support, which is the frontier that gets all the requests, usually from the privacy inbox of that company, that individuals can find that address in their privacy policy and submit privacy requests, or from a tool like mine. And then these support people need to verify the user, they need to validate the request, they then need to plug into legal and understand what privacy regulation is relevant in that case. And lastly, there are the R&D people that waste the most time on each privacy request, because when a company doesn't have any automated process, the R&D eventually has to go data source, so third party, anywhere the company keeps that individual personal data, and delete it. And imagine that companies could have 50 to more than 100 data sources that contains PII, and they now need to go one by one and delete the user's data. So that can take a lot of time. And by the way, Gartner did a very nice calculation and found out that for big companies working on a DSAR, on a data access request, cost to the organization $1,500 per one request, which is insane amount. And the calculation behind the scene to get to that amount was taking into consideration the amount of hours the different roles within the organization are spending to handle that request. So to sum up, today what we're doing, the vision was increased to not only serve consumers, but also to help companies and to create a better, privacy experience for serving data privacy rights for both sides. And this is very exciting because we have a unique position in the market where we are talking to hundreds of thousands of consumers every day, and we are learning from them what are their challenges when they want to access their privacy rights. And on the other end, we are speaking with companies all the time to understand the challenges that they have, and we try to bridge that gap within the two products that we have, one for the individual and one for the companies. And we created a really nice, compelling connection between these two products. So let's see the products. So Mine for Consumers, as I mentioned, we just passed the 1 million users worldwide, which is very exciting because that entire growth was completely organic. Like 85% of our users so far arrived to Mine in an organic way. We almost not doing any acquisition. We are not spending money on Facebook or all kind of different ads. And the reason we were able to get to that growth was a lot of, content and PR that we did around privacy regulations and why it's so important for both individuals and companies. But on the same manner, we hit a nerve within consumer where they really wanted to know where their data is. They didn't want to accept the fact that anytime that they click I agree, they don't know what is happening behind the scene. So part of our product is to help them, tackle that phase. And the word to mouth of Mine is very powerful, especially within Twitter. And this is how new users are hearing about us. Two interesting metrics that are very interesting are the worldwide. The first one is the worldwide average of companies in the user's digital footprint is 350. So 350 companies or services holding the average user's data. And the user's data can be a credit card, social security number, physical address, date of birth, email address, things like that. And in the US alone, it's even higher. It's 550, it's really insane. I didn't guess these numbers when we just started. Personally, I'm coming from cybersecurity background and I had more than 800 companies in my footprint. So it's really, we are out of control, and this is what we are here to solve. And what I'm really proud on, to date, we saved more than 126,000 users from a data breach, and we saved their data. How did we do it? Each time that you use Mine and you identify a service that you are not using anymore, and you want to ask the company to delete your data and activate your right to be forgotten, we measure that. And anytime that you deleted a company or a service successfully, and that service get breached, we monitor that. And essentially, we are able to measure how many people we actually saved from a data breach because they used our product to delete unused accounts. And this is something that I'm very, very proud of. The product, very briefly, shortly, divided into 3 parts. The first part is the discovery phase, where in 30 seconds, we are able to build a list of all companies that have collected your data. The second part is the understand. This is understanding the online risk exposure. Any company that we identify and we learn the data they collect, we calculate the risk in terms of that specific relationship. So as you can see here in the In the screenshot, you can see how much you are using each service, what type of data they collected about you, and then what is the risk exposure. So that means if that company get breached tomorrow morning and your data would be exposed, how it can affect you. So we are not measuring the security of the company, we are measuring our own security. So whether that data get out there tomorrow morning, what could that implies to our life, like what type of digital threats. And lastly, the control, any company in your digital footprint that you don't want them to have your data anymore, it's your choice. We are not deciding for our users. You are able to use our product to send them a formal privacy request to remove your data. And this is essentially how we got to the business side. So companies started to receive our different data privacy requests and reached out to us. And this is why we decided to develop the complementary product for companies that is essentially doing a full automation of the entire privacy operations. So we started with DSR handling, and in a second, I'm going to touch data access request, which is one of the most complicated actions to take on the company side, because it involves a lot of data that needed to be found within the company. So we started with DSR handling, but then we expanded our offering to another areas which companies explained us that they are really challenging with. So data mapping, for example, today we are able to do data mapping in an automated way. No more surveys, no more questionnaires. We are able to uncover up to 100% of the data sources and to do some sort of a PII tracing. Today we serve that privacy operation platforms in a no-code approach. So it's all plug and play. You don't need any R&D in your company in order to use that. And the scale that we have gone with that platform is serving more than 10 million privacy requests, which is to date, we are the market leader in driving privacy requests worldwide and handling them on the company side. So a few minutes about DSR handling, and then I'd love to open it up for questions, any part of our systems, products, sorry. So the first thing that we help to companies is unifying all the incoming privacy requests. So whether it's data deletion, get a copy, a data access request, and from any source that they are getting. It can be an email, it can be form, it can be a toll-free number, any kind of channel. And this is the magic. So how did we help companies automate the handling of DSAR? We essentially implemented dozens of third-party integrations to almost any data source that you can think of. So all the email marketing systems, product analytics, CRMs, customer service platforms, essentially any data source that the company keeps personal data and needs to interact with that data source in order to fulfill privacy requests. We implemented an API for that data source. So when companies worked with us, within a few clicks, they can build their workflow and connect their different data sources to the portal. And then any new privacy request that is arriving to the company, our product then shoots API calls to all of the different platforms. And whether it's DSAR or just deletion request, we are able to pull the information from these third parties. The person who works on that platform can see all the data that is flowing from all his data sources. And then with the click of a button, he can send that data, if it's a DSAR, as a PDF report to the user. So within a few clicks, we can handle the entire process of responding to DSAR, collecting the data, preparing that, reviewing that, and sending it to the user. And same goes for deletion requests. So we can use the APIs to trigger deletion within all of the data sources. And after serving more than 1,500 companies, we can say that we shorten the handling process of any privacy request from it can be a few days to weeks, depending on the company, to less than 2 minutes, depends on how many data sources you have in your company, but the entire process is fully automated. And lastly, we also serve companies with data mapping. So similarly to our consumer offering, where we are able to build the user digital footprint, we are able to help companies uncover all the data sources that they are using, as you can see here in the slide. So we're able to uncover all the third parties and then automatically show what PII reside within each one of them. And that's really helpful because when they would receive a new privacy request in the future, they can make sure that they are handling and processing this privacy request from all the sources that are reside within their company. So they could make sure they don't miss anything and risk with getting a fine because they haven't know about a data source or they forgot one. So this is something that is being built automatically. And yeah, I'll stop here because we wanted to have it an interactive session. So let me know if you have any questions, any sides of our product, whether it's how we serve consumers and what insights we are learning from them in terms of privacy requests, but also how we help companies for the first time to really automate privacy operations instead of doing a lot of the work manually. Thank you.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you so much. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, perfect.
Great. We do have a question in the chat, and then I'd also like to ask folks, please raise your hand in the tool if you have additional questions. So Arushi asks what the process is like for users to independently request that their data get deleted without using Mine. Can you compare and contrast how Mine changes that process?
Okay, very good question. So if you want to activate your privacy rights today, the way you should do it is first you need to understand which companies have your data, right? Just that understanding was not available in the market until we arrived. So let's say you do know you're using, I don't know, Uber, right? Because you have their app. So you want to remove your data from Uber. So without Mine, the process to do that is to surf to uber.com, go to their privacy policy and start scanning, in most of the cases, you know, I don't know, 60, 70 pages of a privacy policy. So you need to scan it and get to the right section where they say, if you want to exercise your rights, email us to privacy@uber.com or whatever other channel that they offer. It can be a toll-free number, it can be a form that you need to fill, and then you need to send a request. And that entire process, let's say if you can read privacy policy, which most of the people can't do it because it's a very legal language, but you need to duplicate that process to any company that you want to delete. And for example, I mentioned that I had 823 companies, right? So I had to do that process 823 times. Same goes if you want to get a copy of your data, to ask the company to activate your data access. So it's very cumbersome. How did we solve it? Part of our product, we developed a non-intrusive NLP that goes and scan the privacy policies of the companies automatically to learn the entire data structure that they collect and what should be the methods that you need to, that we can use in order to approach these companies. And to date, we analyzed the privacy policies of more than 5 million digital services worldwide. So essentially, we have a really nice understanding of what data companies are collecting, how they are using that data, and what are the methods that individuals can approach them in order to activate their rights. This is, by the way, how we know what data you are giving to companies when we build your digital footprint without knowing your data. I hope it answered the question. And lastly, how do we streamline that? When you use our product and we show you all the list of companies and what data they collect from the privacy policy analysis, you can click on each company and send them a formal privacy request. So our product would then send an email directly from your inbox. We are not operating as a third party to the privacy team of the company. So we only help you initiate the process, and then you need to continue that to yourself, because we can never guarantee that, you know, the process would complete in any case, because privacy regulations are not absolute, as we all know. It depends on different geographies and also the company internal process. So this is how we facilitate that with Mime.
Yeah, we've got a couple other questions. I think the next one I'd like you to address is a question from Sean Bickford at LabCorp. What about all the data that Mine collects? Doesn't Mine have to collect a lot of sensitive information to send out the DSARs?
Okay, very good question. So the only data that we collect is the email address of our users, because they need to sign up to our service, the full name of the individuals, and the list of companies that we found in their digital footprint. This is the only data that we keep. Now, how can we facilitate a privacy requests? The product is operating within the user's inbox. So we live there without collecting any relevant emails in our database. It's all happening in memory. And when a user wants to submit a privacy request, if it's a deletion request, it's a little bit more easy, because the verification process depends on different companies, is less strict. But when it comes to data access request, the way we are going to do it right now, which could help companies, is to create APIs to specific companies, and then to add more verification process along the way, like two-factor. So we want to have an email verification plus two-factor authentication, and to add more layers of security, because right now when individuals are submitting DSARs, a lot of companies are requiring or asking additional sensitive information to verify their identity, like their passport information or some sort of ID. Now, it's a tricky situation, because I just want to get my data, right? I don't want to provide additional sensitive information. So our ability to work with companies is to merge or to solve that gap of the extra verification. So we can be a third party in the middle that can vouch for both sides and make sure that the process can be completed. So at the end of the day, again, we developed a lot of technology behind the scene, which is non-intrusive and helps us to do a lot of the things in memory instead of collecting data and keep it in a persistent database.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful. And I think that challenge that a lot of companies have around identifying that the individuals who's requesting access to the information is actually the individual to whom that data relates. This is an additional value that Mine's approach actually helps with. Let's take a couple more questions. Gabe Rose has a question. Does your product also access proprietary data processing systems?
Okay, so that question is for the company side, the product that we provide for companies. So the way we access proprietary systems, these systems don't have any API in most of the cases, because if they had, we could implement their APIs. So what we do in that case, we provide the company some sort of a webhook, and they can listen to that webhook. And anytime there is a new privacy request coming into the organization, we notify that webhook that they have a new request from an individuals. We put the right information of that individuals, and they can listen to that webhook and run their own scripts internally within the company to process that request. Most of the companies, when it comes to proprietary systems, already have some sort of a script in all kinds of different programming languages that interacts with these proprietary data sources. So essentially what we do, we provide a webhook that can run these scripts on the company side, because we don't want to connect to proprietary and sensitive systems within the companies. So with that webhook, we can actually run the script within the company instead of really connecting to that data source. So for example, we do that with internal databases or NoSQL databases or any other homegrown system. So that works very well so far.
Thanks, Gal. A question from Doc Mulbauer. What about users with email aliases? Doc's saying he just ran the tool and it only came back to 16 companies that had information on him.
Okay, very good question. So currently today we're not supporting alias. It's something that is a little bit complicated from the tech side to achieve. We just finished our research internally how we can identify alias in a more better way, and soon we are going to update our tool to also populate aliases. Now the problem with alias is that when you want to submit a privacy request, any privacy request, we need to make sure we identify the email that is relevant to that original digital interaction. So we need to be sure that when we help you submit the privacy request, we will use the original email that were used and not the new one. So we are now working on solving that relationship between original emails and alias. And once we solve that, we will populate within your digital footprint all the companies from the alias that you used. So it's a good question. We don't support it today. We're working on it.
Thanks, Gal. The Deanne Hyder had a question of, have users found evidence of a larger digital footprint than they did not know existed for themselves? Sort of the flip side of Doc's question, maybe, that once they run the tool, they find that there's a lot more companies that have access to their data than they would have expected.
Okay, this is what's so nice about our product. We are able to go back in time. So how do we do that? The way we construct the user digital footprint is by scanning the email subject lines and metadata in memory again. And from the email subject lines, we have a non-intrusive NLP that we teached to identify more than 25 digital interactions. What is a digital interaction? It can be a sign-up, purchase, previous employment, insurance, trip to somewhere, and we never process the content of the emails. We don't look at that. And by understanding the digital interactions from the email subject lines, we are able to understand whether it implies on some personal information that were exchanged with you and the company. So since we operate within the user's email, we can go back in time. So for example, I have only one inbox. I'm an early user of Gmail from April 1st, 2004. I don't know if you remember, but Gmail was invented by a joke on April 1st and then became a really successful email provider a few years after. So I have a really big inbox, right? Almost 17 years. So when I ran mine, I wrote, for the first time, I wrote on a piece of paper a guess how many companies I think I have. I wrote 70 because I tried to think in my head, okay, I'm using Gmail and Facebook and Uber and United and all kinds of different services that I remembered. But then I found 823 because it go back in time and literally found a lot of the things that are already forgotten about. So I found my hotels for my honeymoon 5 years ago when I visited Central America. I found services that I signed for during my computer science degree 7 years ago. So the nice idea is that we can find almost any digital interaction that you're doing, provide you with the information. And our vision is not to help you, not to say this is a bad company or this is a good company. We provide all the data in an objective way. We show you what they collect, how much you're using the service, and what could be the risk exposure. And then you as a user need to take a decision whether you want to keep your data there or delete. And it's okay to keep data with companies. We encourage people to use the internet because the internet is an amazing place. We just want to make sure we help individuals to understand which companies they are still using and getting value, right, with services for still keeping their data there. So we are measuring the cost, which is our personal data, versus the value that we are getting from these services.
Thanks, Gal. Got a couple questions that relate to each other, and it really around what data is Mine's tool not capturing, and what part of the footprint is it not capturing? Particularly Aston's question, which is, does Mine also pick up governmental organizations that may be having information about the user and sending emails to the user?
Okay, good question. So I'll dive into a little bit into the technology. So we taught our NLP engine to exclude personal communication. So for example, if you are sending a personal email to your friend, let's say it's a Gmail to Gmail or Yahoo account to Gmail, or so we can exclude any personal email provider. So we are not looking at personal emails. Now, when we look at business related emails, the way we teach our NLP engine to identify digital interactions is by tagging manually. This is what we did for 4 months when we started the company. We tagged more than 250,000 email subject lines with different digital interactions. So going to your question, we tagged welcome to Airbnb, your flight ticket from United, your order from Amazon, your trip for whatever. So we tagged these 250,000 emails that implied on more than 25 digital interactions. And now any new email subject lines that come through that NLP, we are able to understand the digital interaction. So it's not like we learned specific companies, we learned the generic digital interaction. So yes, we identify government related as well. For example, in my digital footprint, 2 months ago, I had to reapply for my US visa. And since I'm an Israeli citizen, I have to do that in 3 different websites. And since our technology keeps scanning your inbox 24/7, we identify new services all the time. So you can get alerts on new services that now having your data. And part of the services that had my data a few days after were these 3 government websites where I had to apply to my US visa. Obviously, if I would ask them to delete my data, they would not proceed with that because there is an exception for governmental entities within different privacy regulations. But yes, within the discovery phase, we are able to identify a lot of services, and you would be surprised by the amount, and you would find a lot of things that you already forgotten about. One last thing, if you want to check us, if you find a company in your digital footprint, if you used our product and you say, no way, they can't have my data. So what you can do is go back to your email, search in the search bar the name of the company, and you would see the emails that our NLP have processed. So you can check us if you'd like.
Gal, you touched on this a little bit. I know that you are, because of the data that you're supplying to us that we're doing research on, that you're also analyzing how long it takes for organizations to be able to respond to the data subjects access requests. What are you hearing from companies about reasons why it may be taking them longer or creating difficulty for them to be able to respond to the requests?
Okay, this is a very interesting point. So we interviewed more than I think 15,000 users for that reason, and we are also tracking the responses that users are getting from the companies, only part of the privacy request. And what we learned is that a lot of we learned 2. I would say even 3 challenges. The first challenge is companies are moving the burden back to the user through the verification process. What do I mean by that? they can either ask for additional sensitive information, like please provide your passport, a copy of your passport. The other option can be companies can reply and say, hey, user, are you trying to activate your GDPR or CCPA right? And obviously, the average user doesn't know these 4 letters, right? And the last part is that companies reply, hey, you are from, I don't know, New York, and New York doesn't have privacy regulations, so we don't have to honor that request. So a lot of users on their end are frustrated with that process because they feel like companies are asking them a lot of questions or to provide things they don't know how to provide that, and just ditch the process in the middle. So we took these challenges, and when we went to help companies, we made sure that the product that we are building can solve these gaps and allow companies to overcome the challenges in an automated way without spending or wasting time for both sides.
Yeah, Doc's got a question that follows up a bit on this. Are you finding that companies or organizations are blocking Mind's tool from having access to, for example, company email that might be being sent out instead of personal email boxes?
Okay, this is also a good question that I get a lot. The companies can't block Mind because we are not operating as a third party. When users, individuals are using our product, it's all going through their inbox. So when they want to activate the privacy right, they use our product to send the email from their inbox. So when a company receives the privacy request, they see the user, they don't see us, it's from the user. And the reason we built the product that way is because companies asked us to do that, because other solutions like us in the market, when they operate as a third party and take power of attorney, it really complicates the process on the company side to verify that that agent is really, have the right to operate on behalf of that individual. So when we interviewed a lot of companies before we built the product, they told us, listen, if the request would come directly from the individual, that would mean a lot to us because it would help us verify the origin address faster. So today, when companies receive the request from Mind, it's not from our service, and we're not generating that automatically. It's our users are using our product and sending these requests. And by the way, today, I'm happy to share that we have more than, depends on the geography, but for example, in Europe, where the GDPR is already 4 years in, we have around 70% completion rates of privacy requests. So, and in the US, it really depends on what state we're talking about, because obviously not all of the states have privacy regulations, and companies don't have to honor that, and that's okay. We don't promise to our users that companies would honor these requests. We only help our users to get them and start the process.
Another question, this is from Tanya Daniels, similar to another question that was in the chat. Are your APIs capable of connecting across multiple systems, apps, servers, databases, et cetera, including those system services which are third-party hosted to facilitate data mapping? Have you had any particular IP/IT challenges with the product's use in that way?
Yes, short answer this time. Yes, the reason why our data mapping works in a few minutes is the amount of integrations that we have built for DSR handling. We use the same integrations to do PII tracing and find the data within different data sources. So yes, we support today more than 100 and something data sources or third parties, and we are adding 3 to 4 every week. So we are growing quite fast.
Eli's got a question saying, have you received any pushback from companies or investors in the tech and big data industries who profit from the data that your platform is enabling people to reclaim?
So yes, some companies approaching us to either learn more how we operate. So they want to make sure that the requests that they received from users are really legit. And of course they are legit because it's the individual is sending that request. But it's since we were the first product to launch something like this into the market, I think it's a matter of education on how we can explain how the product works and that we are here to work with companies. And so we are doing a lot of marketing in a sense of education. This is why on a regular week, I'm speaking with between 10 to 20 companies. Some companies say, hey, I'm a data processor. I don't need to get some privacy request. And since the individual can't really differentiate between a company, whether it's data processor or data controller, once the company approached to us and saying, hey, we are a data processor, we are checking it out, and we have a specific rule within our NLP to not identify digital interactions that are related to the data processors and identify the data controller that is related to that request. So we are listening to companies all the time, and that data processor solution, we built it for data processors because obviously they need to receive that privacy request from the data controller and not from the individual. So yeah, we're listening to companies every day and trying to enhance and improve our product. And pushback from investors, not really. I mean, investors were really excited about our product when we initially raised money. We raised 2 rounds so far, seed and Series A. I think what investors were scared about were the question whether privacy regulations and specifically GDPR is here to stay or not. Again, three years ago, but but luckily for us, we managed to prove them that privacy regulations are here to stay and it's going to grow. And today, I don't know if you're following, but the privacy space enjoying a lot of investors' money. So privacy became in the last 2 years a really hot sector for entrepreneurs, but also for investors. And I'm very excited to lead both consumer privacy, which there are almost no companies that really help individuals understand their privacy or even helps them with security. And yeah.
Great. There's a question from Amanda. There's a lot of pressure right now in digital services to provide hyper-personalized recommendations. What's Mind's philosophy on the trade-offs between organizations collecting as little data as possible and the potential user experience benefits of more personal guidance within products?
Okay, this is an interesting debate that I think that the entire privacy community is dealing with every day. I would even take it to a more alarming or not, I would say, technology, which is computer vision, which is even could be much more intrusive than recommendation engines. And for example, around computer vision, there are a lot of debates whether that technology is, ethic or not to use. I think personally, if I look at different AI technologies, since I'm also an engineer, I'm coming from that background and I love technology, I really in favor of any technology if it's used in the proper way. So when being asked about this question, I think that the regulator has to define clear boundaries like he did with privacy regulations and even recently with computer vision in specific use cases. But I think the regulators need to jump into the game and explain or define the ground rules for using these AI technologies, because obviously they can use them the wrong way. So I'm in favor about these technologies if they're used right. Now, specifically to your question, Amanda, Our vision is to encourage you to use the internet. And if you get value from a service, that means that the value that you are getting is greater than the cost. So we think it's okay. And also personally, I think it's okay. I'm using Gmail, right? And some say, according to the news, that Google, is doing a lot of things with our data. And I still use Gmail because I think Gmail provides a lot of value. I could easily change my email to, a privacy protected email, like a Proton Mail, for example. But if I do that, I lose some of the value that I used to receive. So I think it's a trade-off. And this is what we are trying to do with our consumer product, is to show that trade-off of cost and value and let our users decide whether it's good for them or not. And I can share a personal story. When I released from the army, I didn't want anything of the big brother know about me. So I used a specific Android phone with a highly security operation system. I used DuckDuckGo, which is a privacy search engine. I used Tor, which is the most protected VPN. So I tried to do anything that I can so no one would collect data about me. And you know what happened after 3 months? I couldn't do anything online. My bank account blocked me because I used the VPN and it didn't know my IP. My search engine within DuckDuckGo were less good or accurate than Google. So I ended up throwing everything and go back and use the services that I find value. So I think it's all about cost and value. This is how we think about our product.
Gail, in line with that, I just want to ask you one last question, which is, I think lots of people are seeing a lot of frustration with knowing that they have rights under certain pieces of legislation like CPRA or GDPR, or they have some rights that companies are telling them that they have in their privacy policies to be able to access and control information about them, but they haven't really been able to effectuate that. So the innovations that Mine is bringing online are part of helping to address that for individuals. Where do you see that headed in a couple of years? Like, what do you think is the possible end result with services like Mine to get placed to where individuals might have control of their data? What do you think we really can accomplish in 2 to 3 years?
So I can share our biggest vision. So part of our privacy policy analysis algorithm was to help individuals understand what is happening behind the scene when they click I agree. Now, our bigger vision is to do something that we define as dynamic consent. What is dynamic consent? So imagine that you as an individual can define the personal data that you feel comfortable to share with companies, and companies need to accept your preferences. So our bigger vision is to switch that equation where, today companies are setting the ground rules, right? They are setting their own privacy policy and we need to agree, to a world where we as individuals are able to define our own privacy policy and what data we feel comfortable sharing, and companies would accept that, because I think that in the last 2 years, when you think about privacy regulations, it all started as purely compliance, right? Companies has to tick a few boxes in order to be compliant to different privacy regulations, and that's it. So they did the minimum they have to in order to be compliant. But in the last 2 years, we see a shift in the market where companies understand that privacy is more than just compliance. It's a brand necessity. It's a way to differentiate their business and have a business advantage. So in a way that if they show to their customers that they care about their privacy, if they provide a better privacy experience to their customers to activate their rights, a better and easier and easy to read privacy policy, that can earn a lot of points within their customers. So they would be more loyal. And even if they want to delete their data today, they would come back to do business again with that company because they know that they got a very good privacy experience from them. So I think that companies understand that. And another trend is data minimization. So companies understand that if they start collecting less data and only the data they really need, that can also help them provide that better privacy experience, but also can protect them from future data breaches. For example, because they would have less data within their premises. So I hope that answered your question, David.
Cal, thank you so much. And I can't think of a better way here on the East Coast of the United States to kick off Data Privacy Day than having this conversation about how innovation and new companies like yours can be assisting to actually provide individuals with more privacy, but also provide organizations with assistance to effectuate their responsibilities and obligations now to provide data subject access for individuals. So thank you know, Data Privacy Day started here at Duke University with Jolyn Dellinger and I and several others many years ago. So it's great to be able to host something here at Duke again. I really want to thank Judy Beach. And Judy, do you have a couple parting words for our CPON members?
Yes, we're hoping to continue having CPON meetings. So watch for emails and notices and we'll try. And if you have any ideas of topics, but we're going to try to continue this sort of where we bring different companies to speak and sort of tell about their new products and AI and all kinds of things. I think it'll be a lot of fun.
Great. So thanks, everybody. Be on the watch out for further notices for events like this that CPON and the Duke Cyber Policy Program are going to host, and I'll be sending out more information about the blogs that we're writing on the research from the data that we've been getting from mine. Thank everybody for attending. Thank you, Gal.
Thank you very much, and keep fighting for privacy every day, and keep your data safe and enjoy it.
Bye-bye.
Great. Thanks.